So what is thinking? And do not look it up, just from your own thinking. What is thinking? What is your idea, your concept, your definition of thinking? You're thinking right now. What is thinking? Anybody?
It's like a process.
Process of?
I don't know how to explain it. Like,
Or just throw it out there.
because I don't want to use like thinking in my definition. It's like a process that goes on in
No,
your brain.
use your definition.
I
Right?
don't
It's your
know.
thinking.
I don't know. I just think of it as like a process that goes on in my brain. Like, I
Yes.
don't know.
Process in the brain. It definitely is a process. Brain. It's an act. Using your brain to form rationality, right? An act of using your mind, your brain to form concepts, rationalization, logic, all of the above. That's what thinking is. There's different concepts within cognition, which we're going to deal with here. Cognition is the act of thinking, and all the ideas that's going on. In this chapter, we're going to cover thinking, language and thought, intelligence in this assessment. What is language? You speak English. What does that mean? What is this language advisor helpful?
Communication.
There you go. Language communication. Someone said understanding, right? Understanding what? Understanding each other, right? It's a system of understanding each other. We use language here in the United States. We speak primarily English. Spanish would be second. We use it to communicate, to have understanding, so we're able to do things, right? To have activities and etc. Now the big one, what is intelligence? I'm pretty sure that each one of you believe that you are intelligent. What is your idea or concept or structure of intelligence? What makes you intelligent? So intelligent.
Knowledge. What you know.
What knowledge in terms of what?
What you know. What I don't
Are
know.
certain people more intelligent than others? Yes or no?
Yeah,
Yes? How so? Explain.
because other people, they can obtain more knowledge than the other person, so in that case, they can,
Knowledge about.
it can be anything, like book smart, it can be street smart, it can be anything.
So you say that someone can have a general knowledge
Yeah,
about everything in the world more than other people, than the next person.
yeah, I guess.
Anybody else? Yes.
I think like your intelligence in like a certain field is like depending on what you're exposed to also.
So your exposure, right? Let's say experience and environment. But you just noted, you said in a particular field.
Cause just like what he was talking about, like street smart to like book smart.
So you're saying you can have intelligence to one specific.
You can have, I think, intelligence to
Classification.
multiple fields, but like
Yeah.
some people maybe like more inclined to one field versus the other, just based on.
So
what they
is
do.
intelligence vague? Or is intelligence like a concrete thing we truly understand? The concept of intelligence. Yes.
Like, I just wanna add on to what she's saying, is that sometimes people just don't have the access to getting, to gain more knowledge. So it also, that's a factor.
About something.
Yeah.
Something. Something or things. So we have IQ tests. Do people believe in IQ tests? How many people here have taken an IQ test? Yes. You don't have to state what you scored on it, but did you feel that it accurately depicted how intelligent, quote unquote, intelligent you are?
Well, I took it at different ages, so, like, I was never actually told my score, but I was like, I took them at different points in my life.
Okay. And they used that relative to others your age,
Yeah,
right? Okay. And they tested you on what categories? Do you remember any of them?
math, science, reading, writing.
Numerical, analytical, or comprehension, basically, right? Arithmetic, analyzing certain problems, problem solving, or comprehension, right? Who's to say that that accurately depicts a general score or something? What does the score indicate, right? Relative to others your age, others who have similar backgrounds, similar experiences, people from around the different world have different concepts than you do. So just keep this in mind. The point of me questioning and asking these questions is that you keep in mind things are truly relative, right? And so in the general population, when we hear, oh, you got an IQ of 180, 160, this person's a genius, et cetera, keep in mind that that stuff is very relative, right? As real critical thinkers in academia, and you guys will be scholars at some point, you have to really take things at face value, you know, go a little bit beyond that, right? Beyond that, to think of, well, what is intelligence? You know, can you really describe someone as smarter than a person? No, you'd be smarter in something. You may have more knowledge in one specific thing. That does not make you generally more intelligent than another person. As he stated, it was street smarts. We could translate street smarts to maybe social common sense, right? You have to go outside. When you go outside, there's a lot of scary things that happen. There's a lot of things you may perceive that others don't, right? There's a lot of benefits you can get to, have access to quicker than another person because they not project or perceive. So street smarts is a form of intelligence, sure. But intelligence should not be broad and just say, hey, this person's a genius, right? An overall genius. No, you can be well adapted to a specific thing. Let's keep that in mind. But here we are going to kind of lump a few things for intelligence and assessing it, right, in psychology. But we're still going to look at it relative. Some of the things that influence this intelligence is genetic and environmental influences, right? And how we think, how we produce language, which leads to grammar, which leads to having a vast vocabulary. If you have a vast vocabulary, that just means you understand more words in this language than maybe another person does, right? Or if you have great vocabulary and great grammar, you might produce a great paper, right? Say for this class, we all write differently. Some people write a little bit more robust, may use fanciful words. Other people's may be just really direct, short, straight to the point, right? They don't have to get too fancy to get their points across. So there's different forms of that in terms of how we use intelligence and language together in our thoughts. So cognition, right? Mental activities associated with thinking, knowing, remembering, and communicating, right? We said thinking is using your mind in order to come up with logic, right? To produce something. Concepts, mental grouping of similar objects, events, ideas, or people, or simplifies thinking, which means we have mental concepts. When you think, when you're thinking right now. Anything I wrote up here, you may have produced a concept in your mind for. I mean, you probably saw a mental image of something. You could have been thinking about yourself, thinking about the brain, right? You could have been thinking about things out in the world. We produce these things. Think of it almost as a meme, right? You see a meme, you see an image. The image can say so much more than just what's there, right? Which means we understand the image, we get a lot of emotions from it, it can be interpreted different ways, but just that one single image produces a concept in our mind to create all these different thoughts about something, right? So yeah, a meme would be a great example of a concept, a mental grouping, right? Because then you start thinking about other objects associated, events associated with it, ideas, people within the meme, and other people attached to it. So it's used in our brains to simplify thinking, because we have to be very quick, we have to have quick reactions, right? If I ask you a question, you have to try to come up with something very quick. So we have to make thinking simple within our brains. Prototype, mental image or best example of a category. Matching new items to a prototype to provide a quick and easy method for sorting items into categories. Which using our mind, we may have something that is always there that we use prototypical to associate with other things, which makes us form thoughts, a sentence, a phrase about something, an idea, a concept. Here they did a study looking at facial recognition, right? Here's a guy. The CA stands for Caucasian. The AS stands for Asian. In a study, they found that when people were introduced to a Caucasian face, 90% Caucasian face, which they did. They used a prototype, I guess, for 90% Caucasian face. They found when people were shown similar groupings, that even when they got to a guy that was Asian, that had similar attributes, right? But they still thought the guy was white, right? Which means they had a concept or a prototype already in their mind. They saw something of similarity within there, and they associated that with what they first were introduced to. Keep that in mind. Things we're first introduced to may stand, and they may be very powerful in how we see things later on, which influences our thinking. Hey, what was the guy you saw? You saw a Caucasian guy. Actually, it was Asian. If we use just this, we could look out at things in society. We could like, hey, people could be stereotyped all the time, right? People could be stereotyped. People could be misidentified, right? Similar traits. And we group people. So when we begin to look to where we group human beings into categories and classifications. Right, so I did my dissertation on apartheid in South Africa. Anybody familiar with apartheid in South Africa? You are?
A little bit, but not.
A little bit, right? Which is basically a diaspora, right? A racial diaspora. You classify, you have blacks, you have whites, and you got other sub-ethnic groups. And same thing here in the United States, where we can see people are classified, and some people have more access to resources. You know, laws are more advantageous for others throughout history. And we see basic concepts like this just derived from our psychology, right? It derives from the things we were introduced to first and what we've associated those things with. which means it can be used for good, right? Or a person who doesn't have a lot of critical thinking, it can be used for sheer ignorance, right? Problem-solving strategies, right? How do we problem solve? Trial and error. Anybody use a lot of trial and error when they do math problems,
Yeah.
right? You try to figure it out because you're not really understanding the law to that particular problem, right? Or the algorithm to that problem. Therefore, you try to find your own ways and you keep getting wrong, you learn little by little of your error, and finally you figure out how to solve it, right? Those are ways in which many of us use in life, right? Not just mathematical problems, but things in life. An algorithm, methodological, logical rule, procedure, or guarantee solving a particular problem, right? We see algorithms on Google, right? You type in something in queries and search and pinpoints, try to pinpoint as close to what you're actually looking for. There's a methodology to it. Your heuristic is simple thinking strategy that often allows efficient judgment and problem solving. It means we all have our heuristic measures. We all use something that we have personally to solve problems quickly. We have our way of how we're gonna approach something, right? We could be more efficient than others, but we still use it. In our minds, we believe it to be efficient judgments and problem solving. Even when we identify people, right, we preconceive people based on our experience and our judgments on them, so that we could problem solve some information about a person. Think of this, would you treat police different if they didn't wear uniforms? Right? If everybody looked like an undercover cop, or narc. Do you treat police a certain way because they wear a uniform? Do you treat anybody different because they have a uniform? Or that has actually no, you were gonna say something? Do we treat people different based on their presentation? How they're presented to us? Why is that? Do you treat the guy in the suit better than the guy in the jogging outfit? Right? Because we base assumptions, right? We have assumptions about people. Immediately assumption. Oh man, that person looks like they got money. That person looks like they don't. Right? That person looks aggressive. That person looks harmful. That person looks like a threat. Right? We have all these assumptions based off of our exposure and our experiences before, and then also back to two chapters before we talked about conditioning, how we were conditioned, how we were introduced to the information first. Here's just an example. I was just talking about insight. The temporal lobe is highlighted. That's where most activity comes from. We're looking at problem solving, right? Problem solving. Your temporal lobe is where you see all that brain neural activity. Some of our obstacles, problem solving, confirmation bias, right? Tendency to search for information that supports our preconceptions and to ignore or distort contradictory evidence. Do we do that? Did any of you guys feel that you do that? That you may begin to search for things that validates what you believe, and you're gonna totally disregard anything that contradicts that, right? Do we participate? Anyone here give an example or you know, how they may do it? Right, because we have emotions tied to things. We don't want to believe we are wrong. We don't want to believe that we could be wrong. Right? We want to believe that we have the facts. We know for certain, which often is not true. Right? Because facts depend on a lot of different things. Is history facts? you take a history class and out there talking about history, world history, American history, are they facts? But you got facts. Right? But then you might read another book and they have something totally different about the same history. Right? History may depend on who's writing it, right? If you're in power, obviously you would write something, you know, more on your side of the fence, right? As opposed to the other side. Fixation, inability to adopt a fresh perspective. Right? We could become fixated on, for example, we can be fixated on people. Right? Oh my gosh, I can't get that person out of my mind. This is it. This is the one. Right? I only could be a doctor. I only could be a psychologist. I have to do this. I have to. I'm not going to stop. Even though some of the worst things be thrown at you and it may show that may not be your purpose, right? Which means we're fixated. We don't want to adopt anything fresh, anything new. Which means that our thinking is not adaptable, right? It's not have the ability to think of other things and maybe accept new things that come into our lives to show us critical information. Mental set, tendency to approach problems with a mindset of what has worked previously, right? We talk about things you've learned, things you've experienced, things you've been conditioned to, and you think that that's gonna work in pretty much any problem that comes up in your life or any situation. I oftentimes find that that's not the case. We still have to be very adaptable, very adaptable. Right? Forming good and bad decisions and judgments, intuition. Do we agree we all have intuition? What is intuition? In simple terms.
Gut feeling.
What's that?
Your gut feeling.
Gut feeling, right? Gut feeling. We just say some things are innate, right? We can sense some things. We don't need to have actual experience with that thing all the time, but we can sense it based off our history, our experiences with other things. Usually effortless, immediate, automatic, it's contracted with explicit, conscious reasoning. Representativeness, heuristic, estimated likelihood of events in terms of how well they seem to represent or match particular prototypes, right? May lead us to ignore other relevant information. Availability, heuristic, estimating likelihood of events based on their availability and memory, which is, you know, we don't all have the same reactions to memory. I mean, I can ask you a question right now about something, and some people be very quick to remember, or be able to access their memory to even like write give me a phenomenal answer. Other people need a little bit more time to think about something, and they might come up with an even greater answer, given the amount of time, right? We can't retrieve memories at the same speed. That has nothing to do with your intelligence, right? How quick you are has nothing to do with your intelligence. If instances come readily to mind, perhaps because of their vividness, we presume such events are common. Right? The more vivid something is in our mind, the more they stick out. The more they stick out, the more we believe them to be very commonplace. But if all of this has to do with anything, this is about you, right? It's about you understanding your own biases, your own assumptions, how you think, how to change your habits, right? This is imposed to help you understand you. You're not gonna be able to save anyone unless you understand yourself. You're not gonna be able to help too many people in life if you have no understanding. Typically, psychologists, they say, are the most screwed up people, right? Mentally, they have a lot of mental issues. But what does that mean? That means they're probably obsessed about it so much that they use their own issues to understand how others may be going through things, which makes them great at helping people. They may not be able to solve their own problems. They may struggle just as much or even more so next person, but they may be phenomenal at helping people solve their issues, their mental issues, their learning issues, their behavioral issues, cognitive issues, and so on. Right, so I mean, we're at a point in history to where everybody, so much going on in the world. You have all this access to the information about everything in your pocket, right? But yet it doesn't help decrease depression. People still feel just as crappy as they did, maybe more, right? We have access to everything. We have all this information. How come, people are not as successful as they should be or wish they could be? How come people are not as happy as they wish they could be? How can that be possible? Because people before didn't have access to that, right? I grew up as a 90s, teenager, an 80s kid. We didn't have access to this stuff. It would be extremely difficult. Like, imagine if I asked you those questions and you didn't have your laptop. Or I tell you, just write the answers on papers, right? Which is maybe what I'll do next time. Maybe I just write the answers out on paper. No laptop, no phone. Would you guys come up with something different? Would you sweat about it? Like, oh, I don't want that. And the answer I come up with, no laptop or no phone. Right? Think of that. And so in all actuality, you're kind of like, well, we're being crushed by something. We're being crushed by technology, right? Without actually using many of our own skills that we don't hone or we don't access, right? Because we all look at the same thing at the same time. Hey, what's the definition of this? Where's the capital city of Ukraine? I mean, you knew it before. I mean, you retrieved it, you read about it previously. No, you pulled out your phone, you looked it up, your laptop. So what does that mean? Are you actually thinking? Right? Are we thinking in this age? Which is why depression is at its highest, right? As far as we've been keeping kind of track of these things. Depression's at its highest. People still aren't happy. You get access to all the dating sites. Guess what? Everybody's still single or dating 30 people. Or don't have a committed relationship or anything worthwhile talking about, right? So the point of all of this is to be highly conscious. Highly conscious of yourself. If you can help yourself, you'll be able to help others and you'll be able to do great things without being a lab rat, So yes, technology is helpful. I'm all for it. I think you can trade stocks instantaneously. You can sell cryptocurrency. You can make $1 million if you hit that right investment at the right time. Phenomenal. But it's also destroying us. I think they said there's a study done on average we're missing maybe about a month and a half in a year of just looking up garbage stuff on the internet. Think of that. Almost 10%, right? You're like, well, almost 10% of your life is looking at things that have no use to you. Why? Out of virtue of habit, right? We form these habits we can't stop. We can't stop the habits. So just be conscious of that. Just think about those things in terms of, how you're gonna help people, what do you wanna do with your life, what are you gonna do in school, what does this all mean, where are you gonna go next? And most importantly, to have your own thoughts. I think that's the important thing. Have your own independent thoughts and not have the thoughts of too many others just because. Right? That groupthink mentality. Fear factor. We fear. Everyone has fear. Everyone has some fear of some kind. Right? Even psychopaths, even sociopaths have fear. But a lot of fear has come from our ancestral history, right? It's prepared us for fear. Right? Our parents have instilled upon us, their parents have instilled upon us. It's part of us, it's part of our history. What cannot be controlled? Everyone fears that. Guess what? You guys are alive. Guess what? You're gonna die. I don't know anybody in this class that's not gonna die. Think of that concept. You will die. You have no idea what happens after death. Is that scary? It's scary if you think about it. Most people don't want to think about that type of stuff. Right? They just want to go on. But even besides that, what do you actually control? Right? We say, oh, I'm in control of my destiny. No, you're not. I mean, you go outside, somebody, driving erratic, you're not paying attention, you're texting, bam, it's all over. Or you're handicapped, or you can't walk no more. Goodbye to all those dreams you had, those goals. You don't have to worry about school at that point. We are in very little control in this world. We can be in control of our minds, though. We can control our behavior and our minds. That's what you're in control of. You can't control your brother, your sister, your mom, your dad, your wife, your girlfriend, husband, your children. You cannot control them. Yeah, I would say you have very little control over many of those people, maybe with the exception of children. What is immediate? What is most readily available in memory? Availability that we talked about, the heuristic. We often fear the wrong things. We fear the wrong things because we think about the wrong things. We should be thinking of things that we're only in control of, which is us, right? We think too much about objects, places, things, money, and people that are highly unpredictable. But we should use our own minds to place ourselves in situations to say, well, what, this happens, this is how I'll react. This is what I'll do if. So we should build assumptions about things and what we would do after such events. Overconfidence, which is big in our society, right? A lot of people are overconfident about each other, but that can also be relative or subjective, depending on the topic. Tendency to overestimate accuracy of personal knowledge and judgments. Confidence is great. You should have confidence, okay? You should have a high level of confidence, but I think there's a point of confidence where it's no longer helpful. Have confidence to where it helps you. For example, how do you look? How do you look represents who you are, where you're trying to go, right? It'd be a representation of like, hey, I'm not there yet, but I will be. So in my mind, I'm forming these ideas about my future self, right? I'm building up my future self so I can actually begin to attain it. Because sometimes you have to see things in your head before you can attain it, right? So confidence is good to a degree, right? Overconfidence is when it becomes bad. Where your knowledge and your judgments, you think you know it all, and it hasn't worked out well for you with people or situations that you've dealt with. Planning fallacy, right? We believe we have all the time in the world. We don't to do certain things. We begin to procrastinate, et cetera, et cetera. Leads to overestimation of future leisure time, income, can encourage political views. Tap him on the shoulder. Someone tap it.
Oh, shoot. My fault.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
go.
happened. It happened. We're human, right? So there's no judgment for me. Overconfidence can encourage political views and lead to inflexibility and closed-mindedness. Right? You're certain about things. Everywhere you go, you get the answers. You're so smart. You got it all figured out, right? But we live in a very complex world. Things can happen any time. Things shift. Things change. And so, to be closed-minded doesn't make you the greatest person that you'll ever be. If anything, it stifles you. It makes you a very linear person. So be flexible. Adaptive may boost self-confidence, make difficult decisions more easily, and seem confident. Yes, adaptive is a good formation to have. Belief perseverance, tendency to cling to beliefs in the face of contrary evidence. We kind of discussed that. Often use it motivated reasoning. Framing, presentation of an issue can nudge attitudes and decisions. Right? How you frame things is really important. You know, you guys are in school, so I know you're writing a ton of papers and, you know, you got all these classes. But just remember, how you frame even an argument or debate or belief or thought can make all the difference in your approach to make others see what you're trying to say, right? It can make you more successful. So always remember, trying to frame things in a way that really gets to your particular point across. I think oftentimes we get caught up in the thoughts of really how it should sound versus how we would actually say it. So I think being more honest in how you would say things or how you would frame things is key. If you're in the CIA, if I'm in the CIA, right, and I gotta go to Russia, I gotta be a spy, I gotta spy, I'm in imminent danger of being poisoned, right, imminent danger of losing my life or being politically assassinated for some reason. What name should I choose to be a spy? You choose your own name, your real name, your real first name. Now the last name probably will be changed, that'll be the difference. Because you will only naturally respond to your first name, right? It takes years and years of using a fake name to have an actual natural response to it. So what I'm saying is, it's sort of more optimized to be yourself than to try to be somebody else, right? Even the CIA uses that real tactic. Same first name. Use a fake last name. You see guys who are serial killers, guys who do a lot of fraud. A lot of times use the same name, just change the last name. Because they know they have a natural response to actually recognize somebody. Hey John, you know, John's not your first name, but you might be like, smart intuition, recognition born of experience. Kind of discussed that. Usually adaptive, enabling quick reactions plays a huge role. We'll have to go over that. Smart thinkers are deliberate and aware of intuitive options, but know when to override it. And smart thinkers are people who have that gut feeling of knowing something that they actually know. Kind of refraining from being so quick to speak on things they actually know very little about. But they know when to override it when there's a necessary cause. But in a class like that, class like this, that should never be the case, right? In psychology, I think that it's most helpful to express our raw emotions and how we actually see things from our perspective, right? Because we're dealing with the human mind. This is not engineering, right? It's not laws of physics. We're very adaptable, we're very different. We y'all think differently. So things change. So it's always best to just give your real answer to, you know, maybe questions I asked and things like that. And give it as it is, and then therefore we could just kind of break it down and go from there. Right? What is creativity? What is your definition of creativity? Who are some creative people that inspire you? Name some creative people that inspire you. What do you think? You want to put Pete Davidson and Kanye West up there? Put Kim Kardashian. Who are some people that inspire you guys? Just name anyone.
John Witherspoon.
Who?
John Witherspoon.
Witherspoon?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. He's passed away, right?
No. You ain't a different one.
Which one are you referring to? I'm talking about the actor.
I'm talking about the dude that owns a designer shop in Miami, Chicago, Los Angeles. And
Oh, designer shop. He's a designer?
consignment and design.
Consignment, okay. Why is he inspiring you?
Because he went from having 3 buddies owning a vintage shop in a storage locker to owning multiple shops, working with Porsche, Guess Jeans, Bearbrick, Adidas, Nike.
They went from bottom to the top,
Yeah.
right? Kind of. They could be inspiring by a person who built their way up,
Right.
right? Yes. Who else? Who else is a creative that inspires you guys?
OBJ.
Who?
OBJ.
Kobe.
OBJ.
Oh, OBJ?
Yeah.
Why is he inspiring you?
Cause when all the naysayers stack the odds against him, he prevailed, got him where he. You know what I'm saying? He certified.
He beat the odds, right? The odds are stacked against. Right? These people inspire you because they produce new and valuable ideas inside of you. They make you believe that you can actually do something like that too. May not be the same exact thing, but you say, hey man, this person may have a similar background as I do, similar experiences, but they defied the odds, they worked from the bottom, they built themselves to the top. Now they're extremely successful in whatever way they want to calculate success. Convergent thinking, narrowing the available problem solutions to determine the best single solution. Think of this concept. You want to buy a pair of jeans. You go online to buy a pair of jeans. How many pair of jeans are out there for you to choose from? An almost infinite number, right? How do you decide what pair of jeans to buy? How do you decide on what pair of shoes to buy?
Like,
Right, you make a choice,
Yeah.
right? But the process of doing that is you've converged all of these things, right? Because buying shoes is a problem, buying jeans is a problem.
says
Now, it is a problem that you need to fix, right? You need to fix because you need that. It is a desire problem, right? Which means we need this. It's gonna change us. It's gonna do something for us. A lot of anxiety, before I let you guys go, a lot of anxieties in this world deals with choice. The fact that you have 8 million shoes to choose from before you make a choice to buy one. And no matter which one you buy, you're gonna want another one after that. That produces anxiety that we carry around with us every single day. Because we go on Instagram, we go on TikTok, we go on all these different platforms. But we don't even know finally what choices to make in life. There's too many to choose from. So think of choice anxieties as you leave this class. There's too many options, which is a bad thing, right? All right, I'll see you guys on Wednesday.